Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 144 of the Laravel News Podcast. Thanks so much for joining us. We are a little bit off on our schedule here. It's been a bit crazy with summer starting here and winter beginning to set in there in Aussie land. So our schedules have not lined up exactly right. I was in Florida last week, actually, and at this point, I think, let's see. Yeah, no, we were probably heading back at this point, but yeah, had a good week in Florida. I've got a little bit. If you're on the live stream, you can see on my hat here, I've got a little bit of salt water still on this hat. It's my favorite hat, and I happened to wear it into the ocean, and yeah, I just figured I'm not going to wash it for a little bit, just leave some of that salt water on there. So yeah, good times. We had a great time, and now we are back, and Michael's kids are feeling a little bit better after having a little bit of no fun sickness in the house for a bit, but we are back and ready to talk about Laravel good stuff. So
we had overlapping birthdays as well. Your
That's
little guy
right.
had his
Yep.
fourth birthday.
Fourth,
Eli had his third birthday. Sadly, we had to cancel his party today because they'd both been home sick all week. So they were bouncing. The youngest, not so much. She was okay. Little Liv, just tough to sleep at night, coughing and spluttering. And Eli was just bouncing off the walls, full of energy, because when you can't really take him outside because it's cold and he can't go to childcare because he's sick, there's a lot of pent up energy, and because it was just he wasn't doing anything, he was up from like morning to night, no naps during the day, getting cranky at the end of it, getting. Last week has been a month, so took him out of the house yesterday, grocery shopping. I just had to get him out.
Take the doggo for a walk. So yeah, so you and Harrison share a birthday, I think, right? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
So Harrison turned 4 and you turned 42? No, I'm just kidding.
35.
Dude, that'll be the day, right? When it's like when we hit 40. Oh man. For those of you, there are plenty of people who listen to this podcast I know that are over 40, so no offense. But that's like the next big milestone, over the hill, right? Do you guys do that there? Do you guys call it over the hill too? Yeah.
I'm pretty sure every milestone is getting over the hill. It's all just different hills. 21's a hill, 30's a hill.
I'm gonna rent a hearse to come to your birthday party for your 40th. It's gonna be great.
Nice. Everything.
I'm gonna make Ree put you in the casket in the back and have it go around the block and then bring you back just for fun. That'll be my birthday present to you from US to Australia. It'll be good times.
Not sure how much fun that'll be, but
I know somebody who actually did that. Like, are you kidding me? They showed up in like a Grim Reaper costume and had a hearse. Ridiculous. Anyway, I won't do that. I promise. Yeah. But anyway, hey folks, again, thanks for tuning in. We are going to jump into releases here. I'll go ahead and take the first one. We got 8.45 if it pulls up. Come on, internet. There we go. All right, so the Laravel team released 8.45 with custom blade echo handlers, model broadcasting, download assertions, and the latest changes in the 8.x branch. So Luke Downing contributed these custom blade echo handlers. So before I read it, here's my impression of how this works. Have you ever had an object or a class that you've wanted to be able to just throw into a blade template, but for some reason you don't have control over the toString method of that object, right?
Or
so
it doesn't have
you
one.
want to be it doesn't, or it doesn't have one, right? Or it could be that it's from a package or something like that, right? And it would be really nice to say, hey, when I render or when I throw this class or a variable that is of this type of class into a blade view, here's how I want you to display it. That's essentially what this does. So it gives you the ability to echo out a string representation of an object where you don't have control over the toString magic method. So it gives you an example of in the documentation using a money class so that you can return format to EN Great Britain, so it would show, what it would show if you were in Great Britain. So with the stringable callback then registered, which you could do, of course, in any of your service providers, you can then echo out the object in a blade template as expected with any object using the custom closure instead of the toString on the object. So they've got custom echo handlers in the documentation now, which is pretty cool. Taylor Otwell himself, also contributed more convenient model broadcasting features, which introduces the ability to indicate that an Eloquent model should automatically broadcast state changes. Here's what Taylor basically had to say about this. It's common to broadcast events when your application's Eloquent models are created, updated, or deleted. And you can do that right now. It's nothing stopping you from doing that. You can accomplish that by manually defining custom events for Eloquent model state changes. So you could say, if you had like a user, you could say user created, user updated, user deleted. You could define all of those events, and then you could then mark those with the should broadcast interface. You can do that, no problem. However, if you're not using these events for any other purpose in your application, it can be really annoying to have to create classes for all those things, right? So instead, Laravel now allows you to indicate that an Eloquent model should automatically broadcast its state changes. So to use this feature, you now just implement this new broadcasts events trait, and then this will work in tandem with a broadcast on method, which allows you to have control over the channels that the model event should broadcast on as well. So that's pretty nice. It's just, again, like developer experience, which Taylor is always super aware of, makes their life a lot easier if you're trying to do that. Tenmei Mishu contributed the ability to assert that a test response is a download. So we have the need to do this in a couple of our apps, actually, and I think the way we're doing it right now is we're just inspecting the headers or something like that. But now what you can do is you can just say response arrow assert download, and you can actually also include as a argument there the name of the file that should be returned, right? So you could say assert download invoice.pdf or something. So it makes it easier to test different types of file responses, like response download or binary file response or storage download. And you can check out that assertion in the testing documentation. So that's 8.44 and 8.45. It looks like both are in this here. And you can check out, of course, full changes on GitHub.
Yeah.
All right, on to 8.46.
We also had 8.46, which had the ability to add custom notification stubs, methods for indicating the right connection should be used on your Eloquent models or on the query builder, I suppose. Add a timestamp reference to the schedule run Artisan command output, and columns in the order by list must be unique. So I'm going to fly by the seat of my pants here because there isn't actually an article for it. I'm running through the release notes up on GitHub. So the first one, Laravel gives the ability to publish stub files. So if you were to do PHP Artisan stub publish from the command line, it will take all of the stubs that are used to generate your models and controllers and tests and things like that when you use the make Artisan commands. So a new one here was added, giving you the ability to publish stubs for custom notifications. And this allows you to do things like updating your default templates to remove doc blocks, add return types, extend your own notification class, and so on and so forth. These are really helpful if you have a certain way that you want, like if you don't want to have the defaults that Laravel provides you. I know that in my custom base repository that I use for my applications, I've got the stubs published in there, and then I modify them to remove all of the doc blocks and things like that. My migrations, I take out the down method because I never use those and things like that. So if you want to customize that, this is just giving you another a piece of that customization puzzle. The notification stub wasn't there before. So thanks to Bogdan Karchenko, who contributed that one. We've also got methods for indicating the right connection should be used. So this is whether or not the connection should use the right PDO connection in your models, in your query builder, and things like that. This is around where you're using a separate read and write node for your databases. So if you have a single primary write database server, and then that replicates to all of your secondary servers and things like that, just to spread the read loads from your application. And it takes into account the sticky. So if you were to write and wanted to read back immediately, it would connect to the same database rather than establishing a connection to the read node. So this is all around forcing whether the right connection should be used on a particular connection or query. We've also got adding a timestamp reference to the schedule run Artisan command. It's a small update to print the timestamp reference on every execution. So previously, I think it would just spit out that a command was running. It will now print out the timestamp for you. So if you are monitoring that, or you were checking the output within Forge or whatever, you'll be able to see when that scheduled command actually ran, which is helpful if you're wanting to make sure things are running on time if you're not using a scheduled task monitoring service. And then the last thing we have here is columns in the order by list must be unique. So this references back to a previous merge request, which has, I don't know, gone, disappeared. But there is an issue open. If you're using undefined index, there's some collisions, I suppose. So definitely check that out if that is what you are interested in. We'll have links to that in the show notes if you would like to peruse further.
Absolutely. All right. So jumping on to news here. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Laravel. Happy birthday to you. Laravel is 10 years old on June 9th. June 9th was officially the 10th birthday of the very first beta release of Laravel. And it's come a long way in 10 years. It also is, I think I was looking at, somebody said also that it's been 6 years since Laravel News. They referenced the newsletter version, I think, and it's like 300 and something, 50, maybe it's 7 years old. In any case, there was in this blog post here, there's a screenshot of Taylor's original announcement. Here it was, Laravel, a classy new PHP framework, RESTful, ORM, sessions, caching, CodeIgniter style docs. That was a big one for Taylor. I know CodeIgniter was really sort of took off because they had such great documentation. And I think that's also a huge reason why Laravel succeeded originally and why it continues to succeed, is because they're so insistent on excellent documents. And in fact, Nuno recently tweeted out, Nuno Maduro, tweeted out, like, what's something that I've been learning recently? And he said, since I've gone to Laravel, I've learned how to write really good documentation. That's something that I've learned. And it's true, right? They still do that even today. And so Abigail Otwell, actually Taylor's wife as well, posted on Facebook and said, I remember when we were like, I was 20, Taylor was 25, and I would go to bed and the kids would go to bed and Taylor would be up every night till 1 or 2 a.m. working on this. And it was just for like fun, right?
Yeah.
And he posted it up on GitHub, and she said like he was really excited that a couple people had like starred it and shared it on Facebook. He was just really geeked about that. But originally this was not for any money, any sort. He just wanted to make something for himself that he could really use. And I've heard the whole origin story before, but he had like a pull request out there for CodeIgniter, I think, and nobody would pull it in. Like it was just kind of like he couldn't get the attention of the maintainers in order to pull it in. So he's like, fine, I'll just make my own. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, Eric says here, I'd love to write about the entire history, but it'd be a 1,000-page book at this point. From the beginning to today, Laravel never settles and continues to innovate. In the past 10 years, the framework has grown to be the most popular PHP framework, an entire worldwide ecosystem with conferences, meetup, jobs, and of course its own enterprise with all these products, which there is 18 products. Vapor, Forge, Envoy, Horizon, Nova, Echo, Lumen, Sail, Spark, Valet, Mix, Cashier, Dusk, Sanctum, Scout, Socialite, Telescope, Jetstream. It's crazy. It's made a huge impact on the tech world. And Eric says here, I want to personally thank everyone that's contributed to the framework and Taylor personally for all the hard work he's put into it over the past 10 years. Yes, Taylor, tireless maintenance and innovation, and so much appreciate all that he's done, not only for the world of PHP, but for all the developers' lives that he has literally changed. Lots of people are successful today or have jobs today because of Laravel. So thank you, Taylor, and thank you, Eric, for continuing to keep up with everything that's going on here, as well as all the people that Eric helps to employ to make this show happen as well.
Next up, the Laravel team released Cashier Stripe version 13 that includes new payment methods, multiple discounts on receipts, syncs customer data with Stripe data, and the latest improvements since the version 12 release. So Dries Vince is leading the charge on development for Stripe and contributed new user payment methods to the PHP API, which allows you to specify payment method type, including SEPA, direct debit payments. Here is a preview from the Cashier Stripe release announcement post. So we've got payment methods. You could get SEPA payment methods. You can determine if a user has a particular payment method, and you can delete a particular payment method. We've also had the contribution, the ability to sync customer data with Stripe using a booted model method to handle syncing during the updated model event. So within your model, you could have a protected function booted, and then that calls the and you can make this queuable. Queuable is a helper method for those of you who don't know, where you could pass a closure and it will just throw an anonymous closure onto the queue to be processed. And this allows you to just sync your Stripe customer details whenever a model is updated. Bendo and Dries Vince also collaborated on the ability to be able to preview an invoice for any price changes. So you can preview upcoming invoices using the subscription preview invoice method. And there's a whole lot more. And from what I saw, I think Dries said there's a bunch more stuff coming in some future releases as well. So you can see the complete list of new features and updates in the post we'll link to in the show notes. There's also a diff between the most recent 12.14 and version 13 on GitHub. And if you do need to upgrade from version 12, reference the upgrading to version 13 from version 12 guide, and check out the announcement post, which goes into more details of the version 13 release. We'll have links to all of that in the show notes.
I really like this, the ability to update customer data with Stripe using a booted model method to handle syncing during the updated model event. This is really interesting. I love the fact that they're using that queuable there. And actually, this is something that we have a challenge of on our side. We want the data updated, and this isn't specifically with a Stripe, but with a system of record that we have that's a legacy system of record. And as a result, because it's legacy, it takes a little while to get this data imported. So when a user does come on, we have a background job that we fire, and then we go look that stuff up. And I think recently we actually realized that for that one particular place, it was not getting queued, right? And so what we didn't find out until a little bit later was that it was really slow for people to log in, right? And so actually our sponsor today helps to take care of that stuff. So Scout APM, which stands for Application Performance Monitoring, is actually designed to help PHP developers quickly find and fix performance issues without having to deal with the headache or overhead of enterprise platform feature bloat. No?
No, you keep going.
All right, Michael, you're going to have to cut this one up. For all you live listeners out there, all three of you maybe. Is anybody even watching? Probably not. We'll see. All right, I'll just start that one over. We good with that?
Go for it.
Okay. So Scout APM is actually designed to help with that exact problem. Scout APM, which stands for Application Performance Monitoring, is designed to help you as a PHP developer find and fix your performance issues without having to deal with the headache or overhead of enterprise platform feature bloat. So it's got a developer-centric UI and logic that actually ties the bottlenecks to your source code. So N+1 queries, slow database queries, memory bloat, all those things are going to be shown to you exactly where they occur inside your code, so you can spend less time debugging your code and more time building the next awesome feature. Has real-time alerting, also has weekly digest emails, and you can rest easier knowing that Scout is on watch to help you resolve these performance issues before your customers even see them. Today, you can give a Scout a try for 14 days for free and experience why developers are loving Scout and using it on all of their applications. For Laravel News listeners, Scout will donate $5 to the open source project of your choice. There's lots to choose from these days, folks. We got lots of people making amazing contributions to open source, and would love your sponsorships. So to get a free 14-day trial as well as sponsor your favorite open source project, go to scoutapm.com/Laravel News, and you can get that free 14-day trial so you can find those bugs and start fixing them. Thanks, Scout. We appreciate it. Okay, what do we got next, my friend? My Notion is freaking out here.
Laravel Microscope is the next thing we've got here.
Ooh, wait. Where's this? Why am I missing it? I don't see Microscope.
Smart error checking and refactoring development tool for Laravel.
Let's hear it.
So Microscope is a Laravel development tool that includes smart checks to discover errors related to your applications. The highlight features, according to the package author's README, include that it is created to be smarter than PHP Storm and other IDEs in finding errors.
Them's fighting words.
Those are fighting words, even from someone who doesn't use PHP Storm. It is created to understand Laravel runtime and its associated magic. It does not show you false errors. All the errors are really errors. And even if you have written a lot of test PRP, you may still need this. It can refactor your code by applying earlier returns automatically, and it is written from scratch to yield the maximum performance possible. The package includes over 17 different checks and a special command to run all of them. The commands will help you discover bugs and pitfalls in your applications that you might not have very many tests for. However, this package can also be helpful for apps that do have tests. So it helps you. It has some useful commands that will help you avoid common pitfalls such as using database queries in your blade templates, detecting quote unquote bad practices such as using env calls out of your configuration files. You can automatically flatten functions and loops by applying the early return rule. It allows you to check your view and view make calls and report if they are referring to incorrect or missing files, and validates event handler registration and gate policies and definitions. I assume this is running as some kind of command line utility as opposed to being part of your IDE. So that may or may not be a blocker to some. You could put it in as part of your CI process and fail builds based on that potentially. I'd be curious to try it out just to see how it behaves. I know obviously PHP Storm has a lot of intelligence in it to do some of these checks. It's got refactoring tools built in and things like that. But it's PHP agnostic. And whilst it does have stuff built specifically for Laravel, having a one size fits all tool sometimes will miss some of the edge cases and things like that a focused tool does do. It would be interesting to see, if there is some tie-in or some way that you could sort of hook it into your workflow so that you don't have to sort of break out of your development workflow or your IDE or whatever to go and run a command line tool to see if there's any errors in it. If you're using pre-commit hooks, or if you, as I said, if you're putting it into your GitHub Actions or your GitLab pipelines or whatever, just to do it. Because for any of this kind of stuff, any of the linting and analysis and things like that tooling, if I have to remember to do it, it's probably not going to get done. And that's always the kicker for me, is that remembering to do something versus something just happening is, the difference between it actually getting done for me.
Yeah, I'm looking at this too. And the other thing that I would be maybe what I would likely do, I think, on this is I would probably make all my changes, commit, and then run these, because it doesn't sound like it really gives you the option to, like, it's not like it notifies you and says, hey, here's the thing you need to change. Of course, I don't know this because I've never used it before, but it sounds like it does the refactor for you and kind of like then informs you what it fixed. It looks like on some of them you can do a -- no fix, which is sort of like a dry run, I'm supposing. Maybe they have that for other stuff too. I'm not exactly sure. So that'd be my only thing. I would say, like, just make sure that, and again, I could be totally wrong. Commit your stuff and then be like, okay, go ahead and run this command and see what it does. But overall, yeah, I mean, like, any things like this that are going to make our lives easier so that we don't have to go through all of our, all of our events and make sure that they're all working exactly as we want, or that's going to automatically scan your code base and make your life a little bit easier to solve common problems. All about it. Go for it. So there we go.
Yeah, definitely check it out. The creator has got
sure.
a short video, 15-minute video that you can check out that they go through that. Looks like it's a reasonably popular library in the terms of things on GitHub. It's got quite a few stars and users and contributors as well, which is obviously important for something that's analyzing code. You want to make sure that you've got some reasonably broad oversight into what it's doing and how it's going about it to catch edge cases and things like that. So definitely check it out.
Absolutely. Okay, we've actually also got a package by a developer, Ash Allen. And this is for creating shortened URLs in your Laravel application. I've built this twice, by the way. This is, one of those things that's like everybody's got to build their own URL shortener, right? It's kind of like everybody's got to write their own blog platform. The thing is, with the URL shortener, it's actually insanely easy. But there are a lot of things that are included in this package that you might not have thought to put in one if you had created it yourself. So with this, you can easily create a new short URL with the following code to get started. So you just include a new builder, and then you can say, here's the destination URL, go ahead and make it. And then what it will do is it will return to you an object, which you can then grab off of that, the default short URL. It provides all the basics and a bunch of advanced features to start creating these short shareable URLs for your app. It creates custom URL keys that you can have, single-use short URLs, thanks to Laravel. That makes it really easy. You can, on your links, you can enforce secure, so like HTTPS. You can configure the redirect status code to be 302 instead of 301. So when you hit a redirect, right, you're going to hit this link, and then it's going to send you somewhere. So you can do a 302 or 301. You can make a short URL active and inactive on a certain date. So you can just have short-lived times, or you can say, don't make this link active until this. So you could say, if you're launching a product, only make it active by this day. As well, it allows you to track the visitors hitting that by IP address, browser name, browser version, operating system version, refer URL where they came from, as well as the device type, desktop, mobile, tablet, robot, etc. There's a lot of examples in the documentation here. All look great, and you can find more about this package and get full installation instructions and view the source code on GitHub, which I'm going to give it to you right now. It is ash-jc-allen/short URL, or what's more likely going to be the case is you're just going to go to the show notes and you're going to click it there. So if you've been wanting to or needing to use this, something like this, definitely check out this package. Now, I will say, in most of the things that I've made are short URLs, I actually have a different domain for them. So so we have like a wilbur.co. So like for the Wilbur URL shortening, we just did wlbr.co/whatever. And then those are, we just use it for everything. Basically, any short URLs that we need to send out, we just always send to there, and then it handles all of that. So I've never built one or thrown a package into an existing application to make short URLs, but yeah, makes sense. I mean, I can see people using it for sure.
Definitely.
So there we go. Yeah, absolutely.
And next up,
what
we
else
have
we got,
the HTTP client logger, which is a logger for the built-in Laravel HTTP client that makes logging the request and response simple by sending it to a configured Laravel logger. In its simplest form, the logger package will output a log file. So you do HTTP://log arrow and then get, so wherever your URL is or your post, and it will then log both the request and the response as well as the response body. The request and the response headers, as well as the response body and any request body. You can also conditionally log HTTP request given a truthy condition using the log when, and even supply logging context to both the log and log when methods. This package also allows you to pass on-demand logging configuration and even specify a logger for complete HTTP logging flexibility. The implementation is made possible through the macroable pending request class. You can learn more about this package, get full installation instructions, and view the source code on GitHub. I can think of one place where this would be particularly useful, and that is in sending webhooks. So if you've ever used Stripe, in all of the Stripe webhook events, it will show you the request and the response payloads that are sent from Stripe to your application or to wherever your webhook thing is, so that if you need to debug anything, you can go in there and see. So if you've built an application that is sending webhooks to third parties, being able to track what was sent and what was responded from, if your client or the consumer of that webhook says, hey, I didn't receive this webhook, you can go in there and check that, yes, it was sent, and this is what the server responded with and things like that. So definitely something good from an auditing perspective to show that things are functioning as intended. So if that's something that you're after, definitely check out this package.
Absolutely. Next up, we've got using Leaflet and Google Maps blade components in Laravel. So Laravel Maps is a package that allows you to easily create maps using Leaflet Js, which, by the way, Leaflet Js is basically just a lightweight JavaScript library for mobile-friendly interactive maps. It only weighs about 39K and has all the mapping features that you would need without having to pull in Google Maps. But this also includes Google Maps, and it basically exposes all of this through blade components. And so the main features that work with both map engines include things like basic maps, a center point, basic markers, a zoom level, and then you can use different tiles. So there's it talks about tile hosts in here, and you have things like OpenStreet, which is a Creative Commence tile library. Or you've got Mapbox, which is a for-profit company. But instead of using Google Maps every time, you could use these different ones that you have available as well if you're trying to stay off the Google train, which I know some people are. So there's some examples in the show notes, but it's basically x-maps-leaflet, as you would do with any blade component. You can set the center point of the map just by passing in a, let's see here, I guess it would be a attribute. Let's see, when it's HTML. I always forget, like if you're on an HTML tag, is it attribute? It's attribute. A center point attribute or a zoom level attribute or a markers attribute. And then there's similar examples using the Google Maps blade components, which is similar. It's just x-maps-google instead of -leaflet. So very similar. And I've found myself, I'm sure all of us have, found ourselves needing to do these things. And you have to then go look up the documentation and how do I embed this iframe again? And what's the JavaScript I need and all that. And so instead of having to do any of that mess, you can just go download this Laravel Maps package and get started and get busy building that feature really, really quickly without having to mess with all that other garbage. So thank you very much to, let's find out who built this. Lars Wiegers. Thanks, Lars. This looks really good, by the way. Documentation looks good. Got a nice little logo up here. Who made that one thing that makes the logos in the open source projects? Was that Dries?
Kaneko.
Was it Kaneko? Okay. Kaneko.
I don't know. You're telling the story here.
I thought it was Dries. I thought Dries made this thing where not Dries. Marcel. I think it was Marcel.
Yes, Marcel.
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
not
yeah.
a logo. Yeah, the README header. Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Or
That's it. That's what I'm looking for.
Yep,
yeah.
Yep.
So it's got the little Marcel header there.
At Beyond Code.
Yeah, pretty cool. Okay, I'm done. You can go now.
Next up, we have the Laravel Excludable package to exclude models from Eloquent queries, which allows you to define a subset of models that should be excluded when you query an individual model or a collection. So you can do an article add to exclusion or excluded, and then do it on a file. It's similar to the soft deletes functionality. You can include excluded models using the with excluded or only excluded methods. And then you can configure Eloquent models to support exclusions by simply using the excludable trait. I suppose, well, I don't know. Can you think of a reason that you would use excludable?
Sorry, my browser crashed a second ago, yeah.
Package allows, so this is from the README now. This is the package that allows you to define a subset of model entities who should be excluded from Eloquent queries. You'll be able to override the default exclusion model and its associated migrations, so you can eventually restrict the exclusion context by defining the entity that should be effectively exclude the subset.
Okay, so it's like the reverse of doing wherein, right?
Right.
So you essentially say excluded the package to exclude models. So you can then say, okay, I want to grab all these, and then any of them these I want to exclude from mine, right? Instead of saying like where not in or something like that. But I think what you can do as well is you can sort of build this up. So you could say article add to exclusion, article excluded, and then you.
Right. Okay.
So they have like in this case they say article find the first one, and then they say add to the excluded, add to the exclusion, and then they have another method called excluded, which then returns a truthy statement. Is like, is this one excluded or not from my current query? And then when you do find or fail, it says nope, it's not there. So basically, without having to. I don't know. It is interesting. I'm not exactly sure when you would use it, but essentially it kind of hijacks the query builder so that if you actually exclude a method or exclude a model and then say find or fail, it will fail. It will say, nope, it's not there, just because you've basically marked it as excluded. So I can't think of a exact use case other than if
in the README here, we've got an example usage could be an application with a multi-tenant scenario and a set of global entities. While those entities should be accessible by all tenants, some of them might want to hide a subset of those entities for their users. You can find an example in the usage section.
So if you said like,
Yeah. Okay.
Let's say like if you had like a list of titles, let's say like by default, like if you're doing like a Disney Plus app, right? And by default, all users should be able to see all movies and all listings. But if you're in a kid's profile, you should exclude any adult content. So they can't even find it. It's not there, right? So then you could just say find anything that's adult content and exclude it. And then when they do find on it, it's like, nope, it's not there. So it's not like you have to look it up and then say, oh, we'll show this unless it's adult content. It's not even there. It's like it doesn't exist in the database.
All right. I dig.
Maybe.
I understand. I reckon that's a good example.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. I'm going to move to the next one. Notion API. How many of you out there use Notion?
We're
Raise your
using
hands. I do.
Notion right now.
We are using Notion at the moment. It's you know what? I find Notion is good, but I really only use it for like to-do lists
Mm-hmm.
and like I don't know. I like how easy it is to edit in it. So I take lots of notes in Notion, and it's really nice and easy to keep it organized. Also, who doesn't like a great icon next to something, or like the icons at the top of the pages? It's really handy, and it's like infinitely nestable, so you can just nest. Now, there are tons of people who use them for like all the databases and stuff like that. I don't do that. That's too fancy for me.
Mm-hmm.
In any case, there's now a Notion API for Laravel. This is a package to effortlessly create Notion integrations with Laravel. So a very simple and crisp way to access the Notion API endpoints, query data, and update existing entries. So here are the things that you can do that have convenient methods provided for you. Fetching a Notion page, fetching children from a specific block, searching all database and pages for a specific string of text, getting all pages in a workspace, and fetching all databases of a workspace. There are a couple usage examples in the article here from the API documentation. Again, as with all things Laravel and packages, it looks really nice. This is using a Fluent interface to allow you to do exactly what we talked about at the top here. And there's some examples of retrieving properties from a specific page as well. If you find yourself needing to do something like this, again, just like we've talked about with the other packages, use one of these things instead of trying to write it yourself. Please don't waste your time. There is so much stuff out there for you that's already been created to make you more effective and to save you lots and lots of time. So if you need to interface with Notion, this is the way to do so. All right, Mr. Michael, Google Natural Language. We're gonna rush to the finish here. I know we got a little bit of a deadline in front of us. Let's hit it.
The Laravel Natural Language package makes using the Google Natural Language Processing API in your Laravel application a breeze with minimum to no configuration, a clean syntax, and a consistent package API. The package utilizes the Google Cloud Language package under the hood and provides an interface on top of that to conveniently perform operations on text using the API. Right, so you can detect sentiment of a particular string. You can check the detect the entities, detect the sentiment per entity, detect the syntax, detect the categories, and annotate text of that. The natural language processing API can be helpful to reveal the structure of the text and classify content into predefined categories. Sentiment analysis is beneficial to determine the overall attitude of text, and the API represents it in the form of a score and magnitude values. So this is good if you're maybe parsing over reviews, for example. So if you've got a business that's got public Google reviews or Facebook reviews or Twitter, and you want to check the sentiment of those reviews and maybe flag them for review. Anytime you receive a new piece of feedback from your customers, you want to quickly and automatically, I suppose, review that content and see, does it sound positive? Does it sound negative? And if it's negative, you could flag it for one of your sales team, marketing team to go and then contact that customer if need be, and pursue that further. So that's a free little piece of thing. That's certainly something I'd use it for. We wanted to do sentiment analysis a couple of jobs ago where we were looking at doing events, live events, and then looking at the feedback for those events and then figuring out, in the context of the sentiment around that, whether it was a positive or negative experience for consumers of that content. So definitely something that's sort of a lot easier now. A lot of these APIs were non-existent back then, or they were early days. They weren't particularly useful. They weren't public. The natural language APIs for Google may not have been public. There were not, the transcription APIs and things like that are available now were only just sort of becoming available back then. So it's cool to see that these things are available. If you've used any of the Google SDKs, they're all generated from API docs, and they're not like they're one-to-one mappings. They're very heavy-handed. They're very scattered. So it's nice to have the Laravel flavor of abstraction over the top to sort of smooth things out there. So check that out if that is something that you're interested in.
For sure. Along with that, this does not provide the transcoding for you, meaning it does not transcribe the audio to text for you, but this essentially allows you to pass in a string and then it returns back sentiment or syntax or categories or whatever, right? So you do have to handle that sort of transcription portion, but I believe there are also APIs for that as well, which will handle that.
Yep.
Okay, along with that, and actually not along with that, but next we have an Elasticsearch driver for Laravel Scout. So Explorer is a next-gen Elasticsearch driver for Laravel Scout, and it has the power of Elasticsearch's queries, which I was not aware of until I just started looking at this. So if you're aware of Scout, what it does, which it basically allows you a really nice ability to search across models with different pieces of that model included in the search query. So if you've ever gone to Laravel's documentation, and I think you press the slash and then you start typing in something, it will pull up basically a full text search of all the different things that are in the Laravel documentation so you can quickly find your way around, right? That's essentially what Laravel Scout does. But what this does in particular is it also allows you to use these special advanced queries. So you can say, I'm looking for a post and I want to search for the word lorem. And it must have a matching title of this. And it should have a term with a tag matching this, and then filter out anything like this. So these are things that are not typically available in a regular Scout engine, but now you have them because of Explorer, which again, it uses Elasticsearch. So it's really interesting. If you need a little bit more granularity around how these searches are happening, there's some really good examples in the Explorer documentation, which will walk you through getting set up with these more advanced settings and code. So there's also demo applications as well that you can take a look at, which might be helpful to explore how to integrate Explorer in your Laravel application. If you find that the Scout stuff that you're using right now just is not working to get you the type of results that you need, this might be a good thing to look at. So Jeroen G is the author behind this. So great job, Jeroen. Thanks so much.
Excellent. Next up, we have Airdrop, which is a package for Laravel that speeds up code deployments by skipping asset builds whenever possible. Airdrop calculates the hash of everything needed in your build assets. That means your packages, your JavaScript, your CSS, and so on. And if Airdrop encounters the same hash, it will skip the asset build step and pull down build assets via Laravel's file system API, which it can store on the file system as a zip file, typically a cloud provider like S3. The gist of how this works is that once you've installed and configured Airdrop, you'll have commands that you add to your deployment pipeline: Artisan Airdrop download, npm run production, and Artisan Airdrop upload. Depending on how you intend to skip the asset building, npm run production step will skip building assets if a .airdrop_skip.file exists. And there's an example of how you would go about that from the deployment documentation. And lastly, if for some reason you can't work with the built-in file system driver that ships with Airdrop to upload and download your compiled assets, you can define a plain PHP class that extends the package's base driver, which shows you how, which has two methods, an upload and a download, that you can use to then go about your business. We talked about, what was the thing that we've spoken about previously? Lasso. So yeah, so similar.
Yeah, sounds very similar to Lasso. Yep.
So definitely check this out if you're wanting to look into that. I know that for most things, I don't have a huge asset pipeline. It usually only takes a couple of seconds to run through npm production when I'm doing deployments. But the thing is, if you're doing it if you're deploying a lot and you're making changes to PHP code or HTML, but you're not changing any of your CSS or anything like that, it's a little bit different now. If you're using, say, for example, Tailwind and Purge and things like that, you're probably going to need to run the production builds more often, because you are certainly going to need to parse over the syntax that you're using and recompiling classes that you've added since the last deployment. But being able to speed up any part of that deployment process, especially if you're in a rush to, fix a PHP bug, you don't want to have to wait for npm to compile. So definitely check out either Airdrop or Lasso, which we've spoken about previously.
Okay, very cool. We've got a tutorial here by a developer, Doke Norg, who's from the Netherlands. And what he's talking about here is Laravel Nova. So we use and love Laravel Nova. Author David Hemphill, a good friend and amazing developer. And so it usually, Laravel Nova, you'll be kind of hard. I don't know. I would say you'd be hard pressed to find something that doesn't solve for you almost out of the box. There's also a ton of libraries that are available for it out there, or packages, I suppose, out there for it. And so the fields are really smart by default, and they're suited for almost all situations. But if you have a situation in which the UI matches your need, like Laravel Nova's UI matches the need, but the field handles data differently, do you have to create a custom field? Maybe, but maybe not. And so this article basically goes through the different built-in fields and tells you how to customize their behavior, which you can read in the docs. But there's also some additional tips in here. One of the ones that's pointed out is grouping multiple Booleans into a Boolean group. So imagine, for example, that you have a message model that represents a message that can be shown in different scopes, like a website or a app or a RSS feed, and you want to query those messages by their scope. And so you've added 3 Boolean fields: scope it to the website, scope it to the app, scope it to the RSS feed. And you could have made categories in a pivot table, but you only have these scopes. And so what you want to do is create this Boolean group, which is a field that you may not have used previously, but is something that you might want to check out in that case. I'm not going to go through the entire post here, but these Boolean groups are incredibly powerful. And this is a great article for if you are one of those folks who does happen to use Nova heavily. And that would be me. So I'm going to go back and read this one through as soon as we're off the air here. But definitely check that one out. And thanks to Doke Norg for writing this one up for us. All right.
Perfect.
At the finish line here, my friend.
The last thing we have here, please, Jake, can you say hello to the Inertia head component? This is
Hello,
a tutorial.
Inertia head component.
This is a tutorial from our good buddy and pal, Yaz Jalad. With the newest release of Inertia JS comes a new component called the Inertia head component. The component allows you to update the title and meta tags inside the head tag of your HTML. Before this component, trying to change the title of your page, although not impossible, wasn't very easy. Not only can you do this with ease within your page component now, but you can also take advantage of any props passed to your page. Imagine being able to see your open graph tags dynamically, or updating the page's title when your user is reading an article, or even changing the favicon. All of this is now possible. So I won't go into it because it's fairly code heavy, but essentially if you had like a blog post or a post view component sitting within your main layout, if you wanted to update the title previously, you might have to do some faffing around with portals, or setting things in global state or whatever like that. So this will now allow you to create a inertia-head tag, or so you forgot attributes and I forgot the name of an element, an inertia head element. Where you can set these values directly within that element, and that will then, I guess, teleport everything within that inertia head component into the head, and swap out the title, and swap out things like the meta tags. So you can update your open graph meta tags from within the context of a post with the properties that are passed into that post component. So Yaz does go into a good deal of detail to show what is actually happening with some comprehensive code samples, which, as I said, not going to read out because I always get myself in trouble with that. So where this really shines is where it is paired with the upcoming server-side rendering feature for Inertia.
Absolutely.
Which is now ready to be used and is currently powering the Inertia JS website, but is not quite released as a final, full version thing yet. So definitely check that out. Thanks to Yaz for the article, and congratulations to the Inertia team. They're kicking goal after goal over there, making this a really solid tool for living that dream of having all of your rendering, all of your outs and controllers and that powering view components without having to build out an SPA and then reinvent all of your authentication stuff on that side of things in the front end. So definitely check it out. Especially, I saw Yaz tweeted today, if you are creating blade components that are simply passing properties to a view component,
to view stuff,
what is stopping you from using Inertia? And that's a good way of positioning it, because Inertia essentially takes that step out where all you're having to do is build your routes and your controllers and then dive straight into your view components without that intermediate and sort of extraneous step of having to create a blade view as well. So if you haven't checked out Inertia JS, definitely check that out, and give a shout out to Jonathan Rennick and the team on Twitter.
Absolutely. Well, hey, folks, that brings us to the end of the show. This was episode 144. Thanks so much for hanging out with us again. You can find show notes for this show at podcast.laravel-news.com/144. If you'd like to reach out to us on Twitter, you can find us at Jacob Bennett, at Michael Dorinda, or at Laravel News. And always, if you liked the show, we'd really appreciate it if you'd rate it up with 5 stars in your podcatcher of choice. That would be amazing. All right, folks, that is it for us. We will see you again in a fortnight. Peace out, my friends.
See you.